desert sun hung low, bleeding red light across the horizon. The prairie seemed endless, an ocean of gold grass swaying in the wind, dotted with gnarled mesquite and thorny cactus that clung stubbornly to life. A hawk circled above, its cry echoing over the emptiness, while far in the distance, a horse's hooves beat against hard-pan earth. The rider was a woman. Her dress was torn and dusty, once blue but now faded to a dull gray. Her bonnet drooped over her face, shielding her from the punishing sun. Every jolt of the saddle sent pain through her spine, but she pressed on, lips cracked, throat dry as bone. She had ridden for miles without water, without food, chasing nothing but the faint whisper of survival. Her name was Clara Dawson. Once, back east, she had been a school teacher. Once she had been married. Once she had known laughter, books, and a small clapboard house filled with morning light. But the West had taken it all. A fever claimed her husband on the wagon trail, and raiders had burned her wagon to ash. What little money she had was stolen on the road. For weeks she wandered, doing odd jobs for scraps of bread, but each town closed its doors a little tighter against the sight of a lone, ragged woman. Now, she rode with nothing left but a stubborn will to live. The land before her rose into the rolling hills of cattle country, and in the valley below, nestled between tall cottonwoods and a slow, running creek, she saw it a ranch house, a large one, with smoke curling from its chimney and corrals filled with cattle. Horses grazed nearby, their coats glossy in the evening light. A windmill creaked slowly beside a red barn. Clara's heart thudded with hope. She urged her horse forward, down the slope, her hands trembling on the reins. By the time she reached the gate, her vision swam with exhaustion. She slid from the saddle and staggered up the porch steps, clutching the wood railing for balance. Her knuckles rapped against the door. It opened after a long moment, revealing a tall man with broad shoulders and eyes the color of storm clouds. His hat was tipped back, and a faint shadow of stubble traced his jaw. He carried himself like someone who had seen too much trouble and was always ready for more. "Evenin'," he said, voice low and steady. His gaze swept over her, dusty dress, cracked lips, eyes filled with both desperation and fire. "You look rode hard and put away wet. What brings you to my door?" Clara swallowed, summoning what little dignity she had left. "I'm looking for work. Anything. I can cook, clean, mend clothes. I'll take whatever you'll pay." The man leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. His name was Jesse McGraw, owner of the Double M Ranch. Folks in town whispered his name with equal parts respect and unease. He was a cowboy through and through, once a gun for hire, some said, now trying to carve out a quieter life herding cattle and keeping the land he'd bled for. Jesse studied her in silence for what felt like an eternity. Then, his lips curved into the faintest trace of a smile. "Only position I got open is wife." The words hit Clara like a shot. Her knees nearly buckled, though she forced herself to stay upright. "Wife," she stammered. "That's right," Jesse drawled. "House already has a cook. Ranch hands handle the rest. But I been needin' a woman round here, one who can stand her ground, keep the fire burnin', and maybe bring some warmth into this place." His gray eyes locked with hers. "Question is, are you that woman?" Clara's breath caught. She had expected rejection, maybe a coin tossed her way, or at best, a bed of hay in the barn. But this was something else entirely. Before she could answer, the sound of hooves thundered in the distance. Jesse turned his head sharply, jaw tightening. From beyond the ridge rode three men, their dust coats flapping, rifles slung across their saddles. "Outlaws. Get inside," Jesse ordered. Clara hesitated, fear flashing across her face. But Jess's tone left no room for argument. She ducked inside the ranch house, pressing herself against the wall, peering out through the window. The three riders slowed to a halt before the porch, their horses snorting clouds into the cooling evening air. Their leader, a scar-faced man with a crooked smile, tipped his hat mockingly. Well, Jesse McGraw. Thought maybe you'd be hidin' out after what happened in Dodge. Seems you're settlin' down like some married rancher." Jesse stepped onto the porch, thumbs hooked casually near the holsters on his hips. "Ain't hidin'. Just tired of runnin'. What do you want?" "Cutter, Scarface, cutter," grinned Wider. "Same thing I always want, a cut of your herd. You got near 200 head grazing down in that valley. Me and my boys aim to take 50 off your hands." Call it a tax for livin' so comfortable. Jesse's eyes narrowed. The air grew thick, heavy, as silence stretched like a drawn bowstring. You try taking my cattle, Jesse said, voice quiet as thunder. You'll pay in blood. Cutter chuckled, though his hand drifted toward his revolver. You always were quick on the draw. Question is, Jesse, are you quick enough for 3 of us? From inside, Clara's heart pounded. She had stumbled into something far more dangerous than she could have imagined. The standoff broke like lightning. Cutter's hand flashed for his gun, but Jesse was faster. Steel glinted in the dying sun, and his shot cracked the air. Cutter's pistol flew from his grip, blood streaking his arm. The other 2 outlaws jerked their rifles, but Jesse rolled off the porch and fired again, dropping one man from the saddle. The last turned tail, spurring his horse hard into the hills, dust flying behind him. Silence fell. The smell of gunpowder hung in the cooling air. Cutter lay on the ground, clutching his bleeding arm, cursing Jesse with every ragged breath. Jesse strode over, boot heels striking hard against the earth. He knelt beside Cutter, pressing the barrel of his Colt against the outlaw's temple. You ride back to town, Jesse growled. And you tell the others. The double M ain't for takin'. You try again, you won't crawl away next time. With a shove, Jesse sent him staggering to his feet. Cutter climbed onto his horse, glaring with hate, then wheeled away into the dusk. Jesse holstered his gun, exhaling slow. For a moment, the only sound was the creak of the windmill and Clara's quickened breathing. She stepped out onto the porch, her voice trembling. You could have been killed. Jesse's storm gray eyes met hers, steady and unyielding. That's life out here. Every day's a gamble. Question is, can you handle it? Clara's hands shook, but she lifted her chin. Somewhere deep inside, past the fear and exhaustion, a spark caught fire. I can handle it. Jesse studied her, then nodded once, as though sealing a pact. Then maybe you do belong here after all. Behind them, the prairie stretched endless and wild, shadows deepening as night fell. But neither of them knew that Cutter's retreat was only the beginning. The West had a way of testing every promise, and before long, Clara would find herself entangled in gunfights, betrayals, and choices that could shape the fate of the Double M Ranch, and her own heart. The prairie night came alive with sound. Coyotes yipped from the ridges, crickets sang in the tall grass, and the wind whispered through cottonwoods like restless ghosts. A lantern flickered in the window of the Double M Ranch house, its glow spilling across the porch where Clara Dawson sat, her dress patched and her hands trembling. Inside, Jesse McGraw moved with a steady confidence, stoking the fire, checking his rifles, as though nothing unusual had happened. As though 3 armed men hadn't just ridden up his trail demanding blood. Clara tried to steady herself. The outlaw's threats still echoed in her ears. She had thought hunger and loneliness were the hardest battles she'd ever face. Now she realized the West was a chessboard of violence and survival, where each move could draw bullets instead of words. Jesse stepped outside, the glow from the fire casting half his face in light, the other in shadow. He set down 2 tin mugs of coffee, one in front of Clara. You drink? He asked. Clara hesitated. The smell was sharp, bitter. Not often? Best get used to it. Coffee and jerky'll carry you farther than fancy meals out here. She took the mug, sipping carefully. It burned her tongue, but the warmth filled her chest with a small comfort she hadn't felt in months. Why'd you help me? She asked softly. Jesse leaned back in his chair, eyes fixed on the dark horizon. Didn't seem right to turn you away. World's already cruel enough without me adding to it. He paused, then added, besides, I meant what I said. This place could use a woman, someone to remind me it ain't all about guns and cattle. Her cheeks flushed. You don't even know me. He turned his gaze on her, gray eyes unreadable. I know enough. You're still standin'. That counts for something. The silence between them was heavy, broken only by the rustle of grass in the night wind. Then Jesse said, Tomorrow, I'll take you into town. Folks need to see you're under my roof. Word'll spread, and maybe Cutter and his gang will think twice before comin' back. Clara's stomach nodded. And if they don't? Jesse's voice was calm, almost cold. Then we put in the ground. The town of Dead Horse Crossing the next morning, Clara dressed in the least, tattered clothes she had left. Jesse saddled 2 horses, his movements brisk and efficient, and they rode together down the dusty trail toward town. Dead Horse Crossing wasn't much, just a main street lined with false front buildings, a saloon with swinging doors, a general store, a blacksmith, and a sheriff's office with iron bars on the lone window. A stagecoach stop marked the center of it all, where wagons came and went in a cloud of dust and shouting. As Clara rode beside Jesse, she felt the townsfolk's eyes on her. Women whispered from porches. Men tipped hats with guarded curiosity. She heard fragments of their talk. That McGraw brought a woman back. Reckon she's his wife. Looks too ragged for a ranch lady. Her cheeks burned. She kept her gaze straight ahead. They tied up the horses outside the general store. Jesse tipped his hat to the shopkeeper, a round man with a polished smile. "Mornin', Jesse. Heard there was trouble last night." "Just Cutter sniffin' around," Jesse replied. "Nothin' I couldn't handle." The shopkeeper's eyes flicked to Clara. "And who's this?" Jesse placed a steady hand on her shoulder. "This here's Clara Dawson. She's with me now." A murmur rippled through the shop. Clara felt the weight of their stares, some curious, some doubtful, a few downright hostile. In a land where reputations mattered more than laws, Jesse's word had just tied her fate to his. The sheriff came striding in, boots thudding on the floorboards. Sheriff Tom Holloway was a lean man with a handlebar mustache and sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Graw," he said, voice flat. "Heard you gunned down one of Cutter's boys last night." "Shot first," Jesse replied coolly. "Maybe so. But Cutter won't let it rest. He's been stirring trouble from Abilene to Santa Fe. You just gave him reason to make it personal." Jesse's jaw tightened. "He makes it personal, I'll finish it personal?" The sheriff's gaze shifted to Clara. "Ma'am, you sure you know what you're signing up for?" "Reddin' with Jesse McGraw's like riding with a storm. One way or another you're gonna get wet." Clara's voice was soft but steady. "I've been through storms before. This one don't scare me." The sheriff studied her a moment longer, then tipped his hat. "Suit yourself. But keep your eyes open. Cutter's boys don't fight fair." The saloon by evening, word had spread across Dead Horse Crossing. Clara's name was whispered in the saloon, the poker tables, the stables. Jesse McGraw had taken in a woman, and Cutter's gang was riled up. It was only a matter of time before sparks flew. The saloon was crowded that night. Smoke hung thick in the air, mixing with the sharp tang of whiskey and sweat. Piano music clanged unevenly as a painted woman laughed too loud at some cowboy's joke. Jesse pushed through the doors with Clara at his side. Conversation dimmed. Every head turned. Cutter wasn't there, but 2 of his men were, lean, mean-looking cowhands nursing whiskey at the bar. One spat on the floor when he saw Jesse. "Well, well, look what the coyote dragged in," the man sneered. "McGraw and his new bride." Clara stiffened, but Jesse's hand brushed hers lightly, steadying her. He stepped forward, voice calm. "You boys drinkin' on Cutter's coin?" The outlaw smirked. "What's it to you?" "It's to remind you. Double M cattle are off limits. You pass that message along, maybe you'll keep your teeth another week." The outlaw laughed, but it was brittle. Big talk for one man against a whole gang. Jesse's eyes went hard as flint. "I ain't one man. Not anymore." His hand tightened on Clara's for just a moment. Subtle, but enough to tell the whole room who she was. And Clara realized, with a jolt, that Jesse wasn't just claiming her out of need. He was declaring to every outlaw, rancher, and drunk in Dead Horse Crossing that she was his partner in this fight. The outlaws muttered curses but didn't draw. Not yet. The nightfall at the ranch, when they rode back that night, the stars burned cold and bright overhead. Clara felt the silence between her and Jesse stretch long, filled with words neither dared speak. Finally, she broke it. "Why me? Jesse, why tell them I'm your wife?" He didn't look at her. "Because if I'd said you were just some drifter, they'd have smelled weakness. Out here, a woman alone is prey, a woman with a man like me." He stopped himself, jaw working. "It's the only way you stand a chance." Clara's chest tightened. "So it's protection, then?" Jesse's voice was low. "Started that way. But I reckon it could be moored if you'll let it." The words hung between them, heavy as the desert night. Clara didn't answer, not yet. Her heart was a storm of fear, hope, and something else she hadn't dared feel in years. When they reached the ranch house, Jesse unsaddled the horses while Clara tended the fire inside. The cabin felt warmer now, less lonely. But through the window, she saw shadows moving on the ridge. Her breath caught. Cutter wasn't finished. The storm was coming. And Clara realized the West was about to test her in ways she'd never imagined.